The road ahead was deserted, swallowed by darkness and flanked by towering trees casting eerie shadows across the asphalt. No streetlights for miles, only the twin beams of Alex's headlights slicing through the thick, inky blackness. He checked the time, 2:13 a.m. Only 20 minutes until he'd be home, he thought, eager for the warm glow of his living room and a soft bed. The stillness around him was interrupted by the rumble of his engine and the rhythmic squeak of his windshield wipers against the faint mist that clung to his windshield. Then he saw it, a figure standing at the edge of the road, one arm extended, thumb out in the universal gesture for a hitchhiker. Instinctively, Alex's foot lifted off the gas. It was strange to see someone out here, especially at this hour, in such an isolated part of the road. The figure was draped in a thin, dark coat, the hood pulled over their face. A sense of dread tightened around Alex's chest. He knew picking up strangers could be dangerous, but there was something desperate in the hitchhiker's stance. He slowed down, rolling to a stop a few feet ahead. The figure approached, moving with an unsettling grace that made Alex's skin crawl. He could see now that it was a woman, her pale face half hidden beneath the hood. She opened the passenger door without a word and slid into the seat beside him, her movements quiet as shadows. "Thanks for stopping," she murmured, her voice barely more than a whisper. "No problem," Alex replied, forcing a smile as he merged back onto the road. "Where are you headed?" She didn't answer right away, her gaze fixed out the window at the trees whizzing by. After a few beats of silence, she said, "Just drive. I'll tell you when to stop." Alex's pulse quickened. Her voice was cold and distant, like it belonged to someone 1,000 miles away. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, until he couldn't take it anymore. You don't get many cars coming through here, huh?" he said, trying to break the tension. "No," she replied, her head still turned away. "It's been a long time." He glanced over at her, feeling a strange chill. Her skin looked almost translucent, like she hadn't seen sunlight in ages. Her hand, resting on her lap, was thin and skeletal, fingers twitching slightly. They drove in silence for another mile. Alex's hands gripped the wheel tightly, his knuckles white. Something about this felt wrong. Very wrong. He noticed she wasn't casting any reflection in the rearview mirror, and his heart skipped a beat. He blinked, thinking it was a trick of the dim light, but when he looked again there was still nothing. You said it's been a long time," he stammered, trying to hide his mounting fear. "Where are you from?" Her gaze shifted to him, her eyes dark and hollow. "From somewhere you shouldn't know," she whispered, her voice chilling, the words laced with an unspeakable sadness. A wave of cold swept through the car, and the engine began to sputter. Alex pressed down on the gas pedal, but it only seemed to make the car struggle more, like it was being pulled back. Panic gripped him as he checked the gas gauge, which had dropped to empty, even though he had filled up less than an hour ago. The lights on the dashboard flickered, casting strange shadows on the woman's face. What's happening?" he gasped. Her face twisted into a sorrowful smile. "You should have kept driving," she said softly. "But now you'll drive forever." The engine stalled, and the car rolled to a stop in the middle of the empty road. Alex's heart pounded as he frantically tried to restart it, his hands shaking as he turned the key over and over, but the car was dead. A thick fog began to creep across the road, swirling around them, enveloping the car in a shroud of mist. Outside, everything looked distorted, warped, like they had crossed into another world. The woman turned to face him fully now, pulling down her hood. Her face was gaunt, her eyes hollow pits of darkness, her skin stretched thin over her bones. Her smile widened, revealing rows of jagged teeth. "Don't worry," she crooned, her voice echoing inside his head. "I'll keep you company on this road. Forever." Alex tried to scream, but no sound came out. The last thing he saw was her face coming closer, those dark eyes consuming him as the fog seeped through the cracks in the car, wrapping around him like icy tendrils, pulling him into endless darkness. The next morning, a car was found abandoned on that same road, keys still in the ignition, the driver's seat empty. Locals would say later that if you drive down that road at night, you might see a man standing alone by the side with one arm raised, thumb out, hoping for a ride out of the mist.